Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about street photography. Many photographers think street photography is about capturing what's happening around you. It's about showing at the right place at the right time. But what really matters are your knowledge on composition, lighting, and perspective, and how you apply them on your photos so you can direct your viewer's attention, build the right mood, and tell a story. But this actually is something that will take you a lot more time and effort to master. But with some help, you can definitely make this learning process quicker. So in this video, I'm going to show you 7 tips that you can easily apply on any of your photo, and they can instantly improve the quality of your photo. What's even better is you can actually apply more than one tips on a single image. So next time you're out there doing street photography, you will see the street in a completely different way. Okay, now let's start with the first one, which is the contrast. For some photographers, contrast is managed in the post-editing, but that is actually contrast enhancement, not contrast creation. The contrast actually need to be captured in the frame when you're out there doing the photo shoot. And for contrast, actually there are many different type of contrast, and some type of contrast you can't even enhance in the post-editing. The post-editing almost have zero effect on them. Let's go through them one by one. The first one will be the most obvious one, which is the contrast come from the toning, which is light and shadow. Generally speaking, in order to have better contrast, you want the light to be brighter and the shadow to be darker. And for that, the light quality is going to play a huge role. Normally, if you want more contrast, you want hard light source. For example, the sunlight. On a sunny day, usually going to give you most of the contrast. But what also matter are the angle of the light. Like for example, if the light comes right behind you, which is pointing directly on the object that you're trying to capture, that will give you a lot of light and minimum amount of shadow. If the lights come right behind, gonna be give you a lot of shadow, a minimum amount of light. But when the light is coming from the side, it's kind of give you a balance between the light and shadow. Generally speaking, if you want to capture the texture or want to show the form, normally you want the light somehow coming roughly from the side. When the light coming from the back, that backlighting effect can give us some a really dramatic looking photos. Actually, that's not a bad angle as well. The problem normally coming when the light is coming right behind you and facing directly on the object you're trying to capture. But it doesn't mean you can't do anything for that. Sometimes when you're out there doing the photo shoot, your shooting angle is limited, and then you have to shoot from an angle that the sun's coming right behind you. And that way, you can still do something about it. So let's take a look at this example. Basically, we want the object we're trying to capture this building, and there's this girl walking on the street. And what we did is I just use, there's another building very close to this building, and there's a casting shadow on it. This casting shadow just add the darkness to the photo to help us to build a contrast. Also, sometimes the casting shadow normally can help us. Like for example, if you feature more than one subject in the photo, what is another technique I will explain later. For example, both the person and the building, and then you can let the casting shadow only apply to this person, and then the building will be fully under the light. So you create this silhouette effect, and it also help you to create a contrast. So this is the way of using toning contrast. And the contrast can come from other way as well. Like for example, the complement color. And when this is, I like to use this when I'm shooting near the golden hour, when the sun's very low angle, the color is very warm. So everything that touched by the sunlight will be under very warm tone. And then all you need to do is add blue, and then use the blue to work as a complementary color and to make the scene and to build a contrast. So the toning, the contrast, the color contrast, these are all something that actually can be enhanced using the post-editing software. Either you play with a curve or you do the color grading. But there's some way of contrast, actually the post-editing pretty much have zero effect on it. That's the contrast that happens in the story within your frame. Like for example, in this photo, this is one of the street in old Havana, and this old car, vintage car parked on the street, and with this little girl running by. You can see the contrast between them, the size, the age, and one is static, one is running. Same as this photo, the old man sitting with his cat, And other than the obvious contrast we just mentioned, you can pay attention, they also looking at two different directions. So these type of contrast usually just make the photos more interesting and build the drama. And then usually just something you want to do. Like when you're going out there doing the photo shoot, you want to looking for the contrast so they complement each other. Okay, so that's the first one about the contrast. Next, let's take a look at the second thing, movement. We're doing photos, like they are still photos. There's nothing moves within our photo. So that's kind of unfortunate because the movement is a very important factor on visual art. Many movie directors use movement as a very important composition tool. But for us, what can we do? Like we shooting still photos. Well, we can't make the stuff moving in our photo, but we can give a sense of movement. And there are many ways doing that. The first one is gesture. So when you photograph people, you can always use gesture to give a sense of movement. Like for example, this boy is running on the street. I use a very fast shutter speed to freeze the movement. And you can tell, like, not just you can feel that he's running, and by looking at his gesture, you can feel like he's definitely in a hurry. He's running actually pretty fast. So that's using gesture to give a sense of movement. And there are also other ways to give a sense of movement, because there are certain things when we see, they always related to us as things are moving. For example, if you see birds in the sky, our brain will right away transform that information into flying. And using birds in your shots usually give a strong sense of movement, especially when there's a loss of birds. And there's other ways to give a sense of movement, because sometimes there are some certain objects, they can be static or move. For example, cars on the street. They could be parked on the street or they could be running on the street. And take a look at this photo. This is a shot in central Havana. This is one of the busiest streets early in the morning, and it's Galeano Street. And in the morning, actually, there are many people taking private taxi to go from home to work. Actually, these cars usually just flying by the street. But when you look at this photo, like it doesn't give that sense of like a fast moving car. It doesn't give you that feeling at all. Like you can tell the car probably moving because you can see the drivers in the car, but you just cannot feel how fast this car is moving. Actually, it feels everything is pretty like a static. There's no movement. It's not dynamic at all. Let's see what happens if we slow down the shutter speed to 1/20th of a second. Now we can feel the cars moving very fast by placing this old man just right beside the car, and also build this strong contrast, like make it feels like this car moving even faster. This is what I mean, that like to let your viewer to feel how you feel. By using the motion blur, it gives a very strong sense of movement. Okay, so let's move on to the third one. The third one is lines. Lines play a very important role on composition. And well, this is a big topic. Actually, if you want to learn more how about using lines in photography, you should check out my composition video. I'll leave a link in the description. But in this part, we're just going to talk about straight lines, vertical, horizontal line, and the line in the diagonal direction. So when the line is placed in different direction, they give a different type of energy. For example, the vertical lines and horizontal line usually give us a sense of like stable, symmetrical, or things in harmony. But when you put a line in a diagonal direction, this energy is completely changed. Now it feels unbalanced, more dynamic. Usually it can give a feeling showing perspective, and also our viewer usually like to follow along these lines, so it can give us a sense of a direction of a traveling. There's something you need to pay attention to. For example, when you're trying to use a diagonal line to give a sense of like either direction of movement or make things look more 3D, you need to put in the angle so people can very clearly see your intention. If this intention is not very strong, usually sometimes give a sense of like a confusion, and it's just not good. And you have to, when you do it, you have to make sure the intention is very obvious so people can understand what do you mean. So sometimes for these diagonal lines, if you feel it's not strong enough, you can also do is you can tilt your camera to make these effects more obvious. Let's take a look at example. In this video, I mentioned many times like telling a story, and then okay, so let's use this photo as an example for telling a story. So you can see this old man is carrying some stuff, and he's exhausted, and he could fail anytime. But just like the building is tilted to give the same feeling, just like okay, this man could fail anytime. And the other thing is that I'm not in this shot, I'm not following the rule of third. And you can see like the man is the old man is at the very bottom of the image, and the lot of area is just this big building. And this gives a feeling of the things are very heavy above him, and it's kind of like a mimic the feeling of he's carrying something very heavy. And then our eyes can easily follow the way that he's traveling, which is this sidewalk, and I can see that the concrete is like is damaged. Like give a feeling that's okay, and his journey is not going to be an easy one. But also, if you pay attention, he's walking from somewhere darker to the somewhere brighter. So he's walking to the light. So it's kind of give a feeling of like the light at the end of the tunnel. So there's like give a feeling of there's hope. So this is what I mean by using photo to telling a story. It's more like transfer feeling. When you're out there doing the photo shoot, you're not just like snapping a photo. And you have a feeling about it, like how you feel when you take that shot. You need to transfer that feeling to your audience. And then how to do that? Well, you just gotta keep following along these techniques, and it will help you to achieve that. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. The next one is about the aperture. So it's talking about use your aperture like more creatively. When we're talking about a camera, like camera lens aperture, people usually say, okay, yes, depth of field. And there are two groups of people. One always shoot very shadow depth of field, always wide open, because they want to single out one subject, blur the background, make the subject more stand out. But there are other photographers, they always like they prefer to keep everything sharp. For me, if I'm doing street photography, most of the time I turn to shoot like with deeper depth of field. I like to keep more things in focus. I think that's more important for showing what's going on, and it just gives me more room to play with the composition. But that's what I'm trying to show you guys about how to use Aperture. What I'm trying to show you is like Aperture actually has another very important character, which is a change when you're shooting with different Aperture. The rendering of the highlight actually changed. So when you're shooting wide open, the strong light source usually render in a way which is glowy, hazy, and they give it kind of like a cozy feeling. But when you're shooting with like a smaller aperture, and this light source start changing, they become more crisp, like a starburst, and give it like a feeling of like a harsh, and there's a tension. So like the feeling is completely different. If one light source, like one street light, probably this feeling is not strong enough. But like take a look at another shot, like in this shot, you can see there's a whole bunch of street light. I was shooting with a 28mm lens, and then I was shooting wide open, which is f2, and then you can see all the lights look very glowy and give this like a very cozy feeling, like a summertime by the sea. And I feel this is the right feeling, that this is the right mood for the shot. This particular character, when you're shooting with different aperture, are more obvious under two conditions. The first is like when you're shooting at night, because at night any light source is going to become more obvious. That's one thing. The second thing is more obvious on the vintage lens, because the vintage lens they have like these like imperfections. Actually, I think that's what gives them the best character. This is one of the reasons I like to use like a vintage lens, because the special character. So when you're shooting wide open, you should give a glowy look. And I love this effect a lot. Like when you're shooting at night and like shooting like architecture, like buildings, and like the lights on the building usually look a lot more glowy, especially when you're shooting some vintage building. It gave it this like, it just really helped to build the right mood for it. Like things are glowy, it feels like a vintage, like come from old time. It's just the right look for that. And now you might think, okay, like you mentioned that you like to shooting like a deeper depth of field. That means you need to shoot with smaller aperture, but you also mentioned you want to shoot wide open to create this glowy look. So how you do that? Well, the answer is using wide angle lens. 21mm, 28mm, I would say nothing more than 35mm lens. Also, when you're focusing, choose somewhere not too close to you. So your focusing point should be somewhere slightly further away from you. So you need to compose your photo in that way. So that way you can keep most of the things in focus and still shoot wide open. And yeah, that's how I do it. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, which is dealing with the sky. Sky is a very interesting thing for photographers because they can easily make or break your photo. And sky change a lot, different time of day, different weather. They look very different. For me, I think the worst one will be in a bright, clear day when there's absolutely no cloud. There's nothing on the sky, just blue sky, and then they usually turn to be very boring. If you incorporate too much sky in the photo, and your photo gonna look boring, especially when there's flat lighting, and every shot just look like a snapshot using your phone. And anyway, for me, I think that's terrible. So how do we deal with that? Well, there are two ways. First, you can use something to block the sky. So you just show enough information to kind of give the idea of the, okay, what time of day and what kind of weather it is. And then you use some sub object to block off the sky. And then that's one way to deal with. The second way is like you frame your photo in a way so it's not too many sky showing. Like maybe you just give more room for the building and less room for the sky. Then that way the sky just not become too distracting, and don't make the sky. Anyway, the main idea is like don't make the sky become the main point of interest for the photo, because it's just not much detail for it. But now let's look at the other situation. When the sky is full of character, like beautiful color, lots of cloud, a lot of texture, that's when you need to give a lot of room to the sky, because now the sky becomes the main idea. Normally I want to keep the other objects to minimal. Only I keep them because I want to show a sense of either perspective, or I want to include a person in the scene to show the story. But the majority of the photo gotta be for the sky. So dealing with sky differently depends on what kind of sky you have. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, which is reflection. Reflection is a very interesting, because our brain always react to reflection into a curiosity, and then looks more interesting. And there are many things reflect alike, like water will be the obvious way. Like whenever like you by the sea or river or lake, and then that always means, okay, you considering using reflection, because it always make your scene more interesting, just like add curiosity to the photo. And not just water can reflect, and even the wet street can reflect light. At certain level of reflection, make things more interesting. Just add more contrast and color to the scene. And then of course car can reflect light as well, and it's something you can incorporate into your photo. But one suggestion about this is like don't overuse it, because sometimes I saw people just use a pot of water to reflect the light, and because not all the reflection gives us equal feeling. Sometimes like a street pot of water on the street is not something helping enhance the photo. Actually generate distracting, and sometimes may even give a feeling of dirty or filthy. So when you're using reflection, pay attention to the general feeling of the photo. Like, is this reflection help to build up the photo, or it distract from it? So that's something to pay attention to. Okay, next one. Include more than one main subject in your photo. Normally, one photo, one idea, one point of interest, but sometimes you need to have more than one object to telling a story. The most obvious thing, like you want to feature the human being and where they live, and of course you need to show the place and you need to show the people, and that's when you need to include two objects in the photo. And you want to tell a story, people waiting for the car, you need a car and people, right? So that's very obvious. And when you have more than one object, you can place it in the position so it shows, give a sense of perspective, which something is closer, something is further away. Showing more than one object is also very useful when you want to give a sense of a scale, like the car, the building, the person, and then you include them all together. You use telephoto lens. It's a great way to give a sense of a scale. Keep in mind, like sometimes including more than one main object in your photo could be a very strong way in terms of telling a story and showing the perspective. So now we're basically going through all 7 techniques, but pay attention to those sample photos I show you. Actually, many of these photos I use more than one. Like for example, this car moving on the street, that I use the motion blur, and then to show the sense of movement. But between the old man and the car, there's a contrast, and because one is slow, one is fast. Also, I use a diagonal line, which is give a sense of like a depth at the meantime, showing the direction of traveling. In this photo, we use a reflection of the wet street, and also we shooting the angle, so the line a diagonal line, so it gives a sense of like a traveling, and also we incorporate two objects in the photo, the motorcycle and the building. And so that's the other technique. In this photo, we use a diagonal line, we use a complement color, we also use a contrast between a static building and a fast moving car. Anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is like don't think that these are just 7 different ways of enhance your photo. Actually, the possibility could be hundreds of different ways to do that. You can combine them together, you can layer them together to make your photo very interesting. But you might think, okay, so actually there's a lot to remember. Like, how can I do that? Like, when we do street photography, the things like the perfect moment happen like a split second. Like, I don't have enough time to think about all this. This is why you need to practice. So photography is kind of like learning a new language. Like when you're starting learning a new language, whenever you're talking, you always think about the grammar, everything. But when you become fluent, you just talk like it's an instinct reaction. Like you don't think about the grammar, you just talk fluently. Same as a photography. Like at the beginning, you need to think a lot. Like even like think about how to operate the camera. But when you keep practicing, everything's gonna become like very fast, and then you can just like every shot you take could be a great shot. All right, anyway, this is what I want to show you with you guys today, and hope you enjoyed the video. And again, if you like the video, like. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.